My name is Tiffany Homan. A little bit about me. I'm a mama to two little boys. I have a 6, soon to be 7-year-old, although he thinks he's a teenager, and a 5-year-old that absolutely keeps me on my toes. When I am not being a mama, I have a background in nursing, and about 5 years ago, I stepped away from the bedside where I had been working for almost a decade as a nurse in the emergency room and entered into a private practice where I do somatic coaching, life coaching, nervous system navigation, where I am supporting people in understanding the way that their body responds to the world around them, to past experiences that are very much affecting present moment. I entered into this work very much for my own personal work. I feel like most of us do that enter into some of our jobs and doing our healing work. And I fell in love with the experience that I was having. I was navigating a lot of things that I thought I had processed, right? I was one of those where I'm like, I've done so much personal development work. I read the books and I watched a couple TikToks. I'm healed. And that was so far from the truth. It wasn't until I really started doing a lot of work with somatic experiencing. That's where I have done a lot of my studying. For those of you that do not know what somatics is, it's such a broad thing, right? There's like yoga and breath work and mindfulness. The work that I was doing was, again, like really being able to process what is actually even showing up within my body. What am I even feeling below my head as a nurse that worked in the ER? You would think I knew about this nervous system stuff, but I had absolutely no idea. I was really confused when I even entered into this work and someone started telling me, "What are you feeling in your body?" I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean what am I feeling in my body?" So it really changed the dynamic with how I even move throughout my life, how I relate to myself. And it's really influenced the way that I show up as a mom. As a wife, I am also married, and my husband is also a nurse who works in the emergency room. We're really used to working in a very fast paced way, and entering into the realm of somatic work and nervous system navigation was a huge shock to my system because it's really about learning how to slow down and get present with what's happening in the now. And that was so unfamiliar for me. I was like, go, 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 right? I was really conditioned to be constantly into the next thing, especially as a nurse navigating the healthcare field and being in a very demanding position where we constantly have to be moving, the thought of slowing down felt really, really scary. I think that it's not talked about enough, and especially when it comes to those that work in the medical system where it's slowing down is so foreign. It almost feels like you have to be on alert when you're slowing down because it doesn't feel like there's space for it. I really had to unlearn a lot of behaviors that had been ingrained for me for quite some time. Now I get to support a lot of people who are in the medical field or those who are stepping away and entering into entrepreneurship. I get to also support humans who are wanting to really process some stuff that they know is there, but they can't like put their finger on it. That's also why I really love the somatic element. We don't actually have to know the story. And that was such a relief for me because I was like, man, I felt so stuck in the story or trying to understand something happened. And so when I was given that permission slip of, can we just notice what is actually showing up in you today? I was like, what? We can do that and still process some of this stuff that felt like it was so heavy and really weighing me down from the past. That's a blurb of me and the work that I am doing currently. I'm constantly learning and evolving and growing because there's so much when it comes to understanding the nervous system and the body. And it's really fascinating. There's so many different places you can go with it.
Do you find yourself like coaching your kids through learning how to pay attention to the body?
Oh my God. 100%. It's also made me really understand my children in like such a different way as somebody who grew up in a particular way, right? Where it's like, listen to this and this is it. And noticing when some of that stuff comes through for me, and then really trying to consciously slow down and pause and have my children really begin to notice what is showing up. What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? And even really playing around with them, following the impulses of their body. When they're feeling really mad or frustrated, how do we healthily express that? That's not something I feel like I was given space to do growing up. It's been a really fun way for me to even let my little inner child self come into that experience with my children and really give them space to do that. It's greatly affected. And my children are constantly being asked, like, how are you feeling? Or what is it? What's going on in that little body of yours? And they constantly remind me too, which is really cool, like reminding me to take a deep breath, or mom, what are you feeling right now? It's cool to see that, especially because they are still so young.
Did you have two back to back then?
I had two under two in the very beginning of the pandemic. My youngest was born in 2020, in the very beginning of like the month of March. So when everything really unfolded and my husband and I were working in the emergency room. And so, yeah, I had a little over, 1.5 year old, and then bringing this brand new baby into the world. And yeah, they have kept me on my toes, having them so close together.
What was your nervous system back then?
My God, I wish that I would have known about this work when I was going through that, because I was so deeply affected in that time, just being a nurse who was working in the front lines during when the pandemic really began, and having no idea we were living in such a realm of uncertainty, being 9 months pregnant and really worrying about my baby. There was a formula shortage. We went to work every single day, both myself and my husband, not knowing what was going to happen, while also really making sure that we were keeping our oldest as safe as possible. It was terrifying. I didn't know if my husband was even going to be in the hospital room, because there were policies that were being put in place that were not allowing visitors to come in. So my nervous system was for sure fried. It was really lacking connection, which is such a big thing for people. I look back on that time period and I see, unfortunately, where we really missed the mark, where so many people were getting sicker due to not having that true connection with their loved ones, and even medical providers, because there was so much fear. I remember entering into one of my final appointments at my OB, and I remember a doctor, I was waiting to come in and like stepping back as if I had the plague. I remember just sitting in my car, bawling my eyes out and being like, this is not how having my second baby, it's not what I ever imagined. It was such a painful experience, not being able to have certain support people who were in my first birthing experience. It was a very different dynamic. So, yeah, my poor little nervous system was in overdrive for sure.
How would you have coached that person?
Ooh, how would I have coached that person? I think for me, given the things that we're putting in place, because unfortunately there are certain things that we can't always control. I think I really would have coached my clients at the time, if we were in that time and really learning how to use other things to resource themselves and to create moments of connection, whether it was with their partner, whether it was bringing, and I'm looking at a desk here, like having a scent that really reminds you of home or exuberates a sense of calm. I would have really started to practice using techniques to even sense into my body because I had no idea even how to do that at the time. I also really would have been working, if I was coaching my past self, on how to receive support in a deeper way because I was really, really good at bypassing my needs to meet other people's. And so when I was really struggling to receive connection from other people, since we were all so isolated, I really didn't know how to ask people for help or to even tell them that I was struggling. So really, really been talking a lot more about that.
Can you explain a little bit what resourcing is and how people can find like what are things that work best for them?
When we think about resourcing, it's things that are going to bring a sense of calmness or connection to the body, both internally or externally. A tool that I love to use with my clients it's orienting. What that means is allowing yourself to really begin to scan your environment and find things that are pleasant to look at. So right now I'm scanning my room and I noticed some colors on a particular book. And so as you connect with that thing, really beginning to notice what does it actually feel like for me within my body to connect with that item, right? Am I experiencing a little bit more groundedness? Am I noticing a little bit more settling within my body? Do I notice that there's some softening in my shoulders or maybe my jaw? So it's starting to notice internally what I have access to. Now, as far as resourcing externally, it's like, what are the comfort items that really support me? I have this jacket right here that's behind my chair. So it's things that really feel good for you to texturally touch. Like I said, maybe it's a scent, maybe it's your favorite book, maybe it's a picture or something that your child or a loved one has given you. When you're connecting with that item, again, you're able to really be reminded of what it represents. And so these are things that we can do for ourselves no matter what environment that we're going into. So we have an anchor point to constantly remind ourselves of while we're navigating some of the things that life is throwing our way. For instance, when I was going through the birthing process of my second child, I wish I would have maybe brought a couple more comfort items to remind me of my oldest one who I was really sad that didn't get to visit me in the hospital and didn't get to really be a part of that experience. I wish maybe I would have gotten to bring some things that reminded me of him that I got to anchor into a little bit more. But we can use our memories as well, which is what's really cool about having those internal resources that we can kind of refer back to in the moment.
When you said about the stories, I have a little peek of mine. That's my personal thing. I'm not saying that that is true. That is how I view things.
Yeah.
That even if you know the story, even if you have all this and the understanding of how it links to now, that creates awareness, but that doesn't really create change. When
Mhm.
we notice that, oh, my body's having these reactions and I'm doing and saying these things, so I'm going to make these changes, however subtle they are, even if they're just, okay, I'm going to pause for a second before I open my mouth. I feel like that is what makes a difference. That's what does the rewiring. So much of in the history of this type of work has centered on, oh, tell me about it. Tell me. Like, no, I don't really need to know what happened to
100%.
you today.
I totally agree with you. The number one thing in order to create change is having that awareness. And a lot of the times it doesn't mean story, right? It's having that awareness of what is happening in this very moment. So then we can create conscious choice. There are so many times where I was having this reaction when I was feeling something, although I had a huge disconnect, right? I didn't realize I was even feeling anything in that moment. And the reaction came through so quick. And so as I started to really begin to become more aware of what was happening within my body, a skill that I had never learned up until that point. Then I was able to consciously choose how I wanted to move forward. And it's not a fail proof system, right? It's a skill that we constantly have to refine again and again and again because life is constantly giving us opportunities to how we want to respond. But our bodies react sometimes quicker than we can even process, which is why creating that space to slow down when it's possible is so important. So I totally agree. It doesn't necessarily mean retelling the story again and again and again is going to create change.
So sometimes our bodies goes shoot first, ask questions later. What would you say are the challenges that people frequently have? For what I have seen, a lot of people that get to somatic work is because all these other things didn't work.
100%. Yeah, I think a lot of the times when clients are coming to me, it's because they've been doing all of the things and it still feels like there's no change or it's not working or they're still feeling so stressed and so overwhelmed. They've not learned or understood how to even create connection with the body. A lot of the times when I have people coming in to sessions, they are people who are working in very high stress environments. And so when we're having conversations, because it's my job as the practitioner to really be tracking their body as they're speaking and as they're saying things to see, is the body actually matching what's coming through, right? When I'm bringing that conscious awareness or having them slow down and notice, they're telling me, I feel so great, or this is amazing, or whatever it is. And meanwhile, their hands are in fists and their shoulders are up by their ears. And I have them really begin to slow down and notice that. And they're like, oh my God, like, whoa, I didn't even realize that. A lot of the times when we're in session, it's starting to, again, really bring forward that skill of creating the conscious awareness of what their body is saying, not just the words that are coming through their mouth, so we can start to create that change that we were just talking about. Even like I said, right in the very beginning, I was really good at like being from the neck up, being so in my head, really intellectualizing everything that I was feeling. Even that I notice is a really big challenge when I start to ask, what are you feeling within the body? And they're like, I don't know. Like, what does that even mean? I feel like I'm okay, right? That was like this answer that I used to give all the time. And it's one that I notice so many of my clients give. It's I'm okay. Everything's good. Right. And as we start to get a little bit more curious about that, then more is able to kind of come through. The other thing that I really notice is a lot of the times when I'm through with session, people really saying, is this what it feels like to be more relaxed in my body? Is this what I've been missing out on? This huge realization of the majority of my life, this is not something that I've experienced on a regular basis. Even though I've read the self help books and I've learned, a lot of my clients were big learners. I work with a lot of nurses, I work a lot with medical professionals, entrepreneurs in the self development world. We're really good at learning, right? But it's the actual integrating where so many of us have had a hard time. It's like, what's the book? Tell me the book. Give me the book. I'm a great student. I will read the book. But then when it comes to actually the application and slowing it down and integrating what we've learned, that's where I also see a big gap where it's like, no, I know it. I know that you know it up here, but what about here in the body? What is landing? Can we go a little bit deeper? And that can feel really tough, especially again, I'm right here with them, right? Where it's constantly wanting to learn the next thing as opposed to how do we bring it a little bit deeper and actually create application for our own experience.
My favorite assignment to give people is set up an alarm on your phone to take 1 minute and just pause, breathe. Don't set out a time that you can't do it. Like then when I ask them, well, do you have a chance? I mean, we haven't seen each other in a week or two. You did have time to do 1 minute, right?
Well, that's totally the thing. I actually do have my clients put in sometimes, especially when we first start working together, having them actually set an alarm and having them put a nice, pleasant song with it. I call them conscious check-ins. Can you take a moment? When is the last time you drank water? Again, I work with a lot of medical professionals really bad at going to the bathroom, drinking water. A lot of them, again, I'm right here with them, can bypass the body's needs because we're working 14-hour days and we're running around and checking in on everyone and then wondering why we feel so frustrated and depleted at the end of our shift. And so I will have them do these conscious check-ins regularly throughout the day because it's a different skill. It's something we're not used to doing, right? We're used to doing the orders that are put inside of the computer and making sure that we're counting I&Os for our patients, but not for ourselves. So constantly reminding we get to be a part of this. It's us first, so then we can go and serve and support other people. When you're working with a lot of caregivers, whether you're a nurse, a mom, a mental health therapist, a coach, whatever your caregiving hat is, we're really good at putting others before ourselves. We have to be a part of that equation, which is so uncomfortable to put in when we've not done that for so long or we've not been shown that.
What's amazing is the amount of resentment that can build. One of the first people I used the assignment with was a administrator in the medical sector. And when he started doing the assignment, he realized I have been like needing to go to the bathroom and holding for no reason. I could have stopped. I just didn't. I started closing my office from time to time, and I realized how much more productive I am because people are not constantly interrupting, so I don't feel as burnout. Such little subtle changes. They're so on the nose, but you don't realize it because real time is so fast. I haven't worked in that environment, but I have seen a lot of shows about it, so I know, like, yes, slowing down could mean life or death. It's not like you're completely making it up. I was chatting with Dr. Victoria Melon. She's a medical doctor and acupuncturist. And she was saying, well, one of the things that we were taught is if you're not going to do anything else between patients, you at least have to wash your hands or you have to open the door, take that moment, take that 20 seconds and pause, breathe, really sense your hands and then move on. There are ways that you can integrate that into your busy schedule.
100%. This is a conversation that I've had with quite a few medical professionals in how do we bring this somatic element in to the environment that so many of us are used to navigating in, right? When we think about it from the nervous system perspective, we're living in sympathetic fight or flight the majority of our shifts. How do we begin to create conscious awareness of the moments that we don't have to be in high alert for that very moment? And these small, subtle shifts, just like you were talking about with your client, create a huge impact on the nervous system and being able to discharge some of the stress that we're holding on a day-to-day basis. That's so important for not only our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, all the healths, right? Because when we are living in a chronic state of hypervigilance, meaning we are experiencing a high amount of stress for a prolonged period of time, it starts to really affect our health. And so, how do we create moments that we get to discharge? We get to mobilize some of this energy. I think of myself when I used to get off shift. You have 14 hours where you're living in sympathetic, you're living in just high stress environment. And then now I have a 45-minute drive home and I'm sitting in stillness and feeling depleted when a lot of us actually need to create a moment prior to getting in the car of doing, I call it my little somatic shakeout, like vigorously shaking the body, letting yourself activate some of your muscles and then release so you can discharge some of this energy that's really being stuck and stored within the body. And that's something I didn't fully understand when I was at the bedside as well. You hear a lot of talk about coming into stillness and meditation. And I remember feeling so frustrated. I'm like, why can't I do this? And this is another thing that a lot of my clients come to me with. And I started to learn about the nervous system And when we're in these high stress states, it feels like there's a tiger in the room, right? There's something coming at us. What made so much more sense to me when I was like, oh, well, no wonder I can't meditate. If it feels like there's a tiger in the room, it's going to be really hard for me to focus when I'm still trying to make sure I'm evading the danger, which so many of us are bringing home, right? We're waking up in the middle of the night going, oh my gosh, did I do that order? Or did I tell the next nurse or the doctor? We're living in this because we're not allowing some of this energy to be released. And it's just because we don't know.
We are not saying fight or flight is a bad guy. No, that's
No.
helping you get things done. You need that up and go.
I mean,
You need that stress. Stress is not the bad guy. The problem is not being able
yes,
to flow. The problem is not being able to say, hey, I am done with the day. Now I get to chill. So you need to
100%.
create a ritual that signals your mind and your body, hey, we're done. Now we're doing something else versus the usual go to work, you come home, you go through whatever you have to do, and then you sit on your phone, you doom scroll, and then you go to sleep, rinse and repeat. When do you pay attention to your body? When do you pay attention to, hey, did something come out today that made me feel really uncomfortable and I had to put it aside so I could keep on? Take care of that. Take care of the laundry in your mind, and then do whatever it is that you want to do after.
100%. This is something I talk to a lot of my nurses about. How do we create that somatic shift? Because I totally agree. Sympathetic energy, it's how we get up, it's how I got here, right? It's having that doing energy, but then where is the shift in order to support the system coming back into a felt sense of safety and knowing that it's okay or the shift is over? And I think, again, like so many of us, especially those that are working multiple shifts in a row, we're continuously just staying in that highly activated energy, and then we go completely to the other side and we collapse and we go into what I like to call our Eeyore energy, because there is no flow, like you were talking about, having the space for that and being able to process sometimes what happened on a shift. And for those that don't maybe have somebody who's in the medical field, like I was so fortunate to have my husband who could understand everything I was saying, it does sometimes feel hard. I know I had a lot of coworkers that really struggled with processing some of the things because we are exposed to things that most people could never imagine. Even making sure, again, like having those people that you can talk to and co-regulate with and create those moments of connection, that's something I would love to see really changed. I know that there are a lot of people, I'm one of them, there's organizations that are really making headway with how do we create space after we're off shift, maybe at the end coming into a huddle, how do we create space for people to witness one another when we're moving through all of these different things we're exposed to that many of us just kind of shove down because we're like, oh, it's fine, everything's fine, right? I've seen so many things while navigating working at the bedside, and we get really good at storing them away because we're trying to survive our shift. We don't necessarily have time on the shift to process every single thing, or I wouldn't be an efficient, a proficient nurse to be able to take care of all the people coming in. But then when do we actually process it? And many of us aren't. It's like another day, or it wasn't that big of a deal. And then we don't realize we're carrying it in the body. I don't understand why I've got this excruciating pain in my shoulders or this tension headache that hasn't gone away, or my thighs, I haven't worked out, but it feels like I have. A lot of us are constantly bracing for potential impact. The body can't tell if a car is coming its way or a doctor is coming to yell at us or a patient is frustrated. We're experiencing all these different moments during the day where we're bracing the body for life. And so again, when do we begin to soften that?
What would be your recommendations for relationships? My husband is a therapist, so not seeing gory images, but he could be hearing it. But other than that, it's not just a story. It's like having to be constantly on. You have to be at the top of your game, full attention for hours. It takes a toll. At the end of the day, especially like you said, 3 days back to back.
Yeah.
And Thursday, Fridays are the day for us to get in a fight. What would be your suggestions for people who are in relationships and maybe one or both are in similar situations, whether they're in healthcare or not, just highly stressful? maybe
Yeah.
still learning those skills to flow, what would be your go-to?
Definitely having kind of how we spoke about creating that somatic shift when you're coming out of a work day, something stressful, whatever that looks like, so we can actually create coming back into flow. Communication is always going to be a really big one. Can I even communicate with where my day was at so my partner's aware of maybe what I'm needing? I cannot tell you how many moments I have had to say, I just need 5 minutes of silence because if I don't, I might just scream. When we're creating that conscious awareness for ourselves, sometimes it is sitting in the car for 5 additional minutes before I enter the house, listening to my feel good song, finding ways that we can really begin to come back to ourselves and get really connected so we're not using the day's frustration to take it out on our partners, which can happen. I mean, I know that I have done this many, many times and I'm constantly working on it. Like, what am I still carrying from my day that's no longer necessary? What are any of the stressors that maybe I experienced that I'm still holding on to? What would it be like for me to put them down? I'm a huge advocate of also either verbally processing or doing some sort of journaling. Even if you don't want to write the words out, sometimes I just like to scribble and use colors. Finding again ways that you can connect and use your sense of creativity or ways that you desire to express because not everyone, I mean, I remember those days when I would be done with my 14-hour shift by the time I got home, thinking about talking felt exhausting. Sometimes, again, it's even naming that and finding what are the ways that I do want to express. For me, movement is a really big one. Do you throw your AirPods in and just let your body move in that way? Is it coloring? Coloring is another one that I really personally enjoy. And we talked about that resourcing. What are the things that are going to support you in being able to not only experience what happened through the day, but express and expel so you're not holding on to it for the following days that you're either working and or if those are your off days, carrying it throughout your entire week, which can feel really tough sometimes. Sometimes we just want to go home and we just like be a sardine and just lay in our bed of like, oh gosh, I don't want to do any of the like we can feel like zombies sometimes. How do we resource ourselves so we're not feeling that way for the remainder of the week? Especially when we come into relationship because it's tough when we have other nervous systems that we're around because we have these crazy things called mirror neurons, right? And so we emit these energies off of our bodies. It is a lot of the times why we end up in these debacles because we're frustrated, we're holding on to stuff. And then unfortunately, sometimes it can be projected onto our partners again unconsciously, right? You come home, you see the dish in the sink, and you're feeling depleted from taking care of all of these different people throughout the day. If you're anything like me and you hate a dish in the sink, it can bring something up, but it actually has nothing to do with the dish in the sink, and it has everything to do with feeling like I now have to exert more energy or I have to take care of something else. This is even some of my own personal work that I am constantly, continuously doing in rewiring. Because just because we're removed from that stressful experience or stressful job, whatever that looks like, doesn't mean that these things just evade our system. We see them sometimes being repeated through different things again and again and again until we've processed them from the body up.
Makes a big difference, like knowing that, just knowing that, yeah, I'm gonna be a bit busier today than usual. For us, once he comes home, let's say that I was off all day, I have been with the kids all day, so like
Yep.
it hasn't been a picnic most of the days either. I didn't consider when I decided to homeschool, they're gonna be here all day, so there's gonna be more mess, and you have to cook a lot more. So I have more meals for everybody, because everybody here eats something different, including me. I'm done also. It's
Hard.
easy to just fire at each other. It's been interesting how easy it can be. Easy. It can be to just having that awareness of, okay, I need to know when to remove myself from the situation. I need to make sure I eat first before I open my mouth.
Yeah. I think when it comes to this stuff, even when you said easy, some of it can be so simple, but it's not always easy, right? Being able to actually practice what we're preaching and putting it into daily use can be really hard sometimes. Just as you were saying, maybe I forgot to eat because I was running around and taking care of the kids and bringing them to baseball and bringing them to school and doing all of these different things, for you're doing throughout your day to day. Homeschooling, I couldn't even imagine. And now we come home and we have all this energy and we're just like ready to take it, get out of here. And meanwhile, we don't really recognize our partner. Maybe they also had a really bad day because we're the main character of our own story, right? Now, all of a sudden, we have another human being and we're like, well, hot potato, you take it. No, you take it. Creating those check ins. I love doing somatic check ins of like, where are we at? Who has the capacity in this moment? Are both of us on like E completely and we need to go put the TV on for 5 minutes so we can just take a moment? Do we need to maybe have the kids go outside and jump on the trampoline? How do we even check our own capacity for where we're at? Maybe today I can't actually cook dinner because I've got nothing more left. Okay, I'm getting the rotisserie chicken from Publix. Constantly creating these moments to where we can check in with where our capacity is. I can't tell you how many times my clients, and again, I'm always including myself in this, we're walking around with 3% left on our battery and we've not plugged in all day. I always say we're plugging in our phones more often than ourselves. How do we tend to ourselves a little bit more without creating that element of shame or guilt? Because I used to feel that all the time. Well, if I put the TV on for 5 minutes, what does that mean? Or if I go and buy the rotisserie chicken and I don't do the home cooked meal like my mom did, right? We have all of these stories that match how we're feeling. Story always matches state of our nervous system.
Can you speak to that split when our bodies are exhausted but our minds won't shut up?
Yeah, this is such a good sign of us being in overdrive and almost even sometimes a little bit of a dissociative state where I'm so up here and I'm so outside of my body. And this is where I personally always say, it sounds so silly, but it's so true. When is the last time you went and touched some grass? This is always an indicator for me when I am so up here and I can't seem to slow down. My body's on extreme overdrive. Can I take those 5, 10, 30 seconds to allow myself to feel some sensory input from something outside of myself? What I mean by that is like feeling the texture of the grass on my feet or the carpet beneath me. I also have these little like squishy balls. What is it like for me to even feel some external input for my body so I'm not all the way up here? And if I'm having a really difficult time connecting with my body, weighted blankets are really great. Anything that's going to create a little bit of containment for the body for me to come back down into it. Because when I'm feeling really disconnected from my body, like that disembodiment or some disassociation, it's usually because there's so much happening here that your body's like, I'm just going to take you out for a moment because it's so big and I don't know how to process all of this in this moment. When we can create some containment, or even, I mean, you can even do some soft self touch around the perimeter of your body. It's starting again to let the body know in this very moment, not 5 minutes ago, not 10 minutes from now, in this very moment, I'm okay enough. Doesn't mean I feel comfortable. Doesn't mean there's not still a dish in the sink that's driving me crazy. But in this very moment, there isn't an active tiger that's chasing me, even though it might feel that way. When we can connect with things that feel pleasant for us to look at and starting to really bring that online. Because that's another thing I notice when I'm really teaching this orienting. A lot of the times we'll shoot for the things that feel not pleasant. I notice my laundry over here and I notice this over here. So it's like, I hear you. And can we reroute to things that actually elicit a spark within you that feel really good to connect with? And again, That's a skill to learn how to go towards the things that feel good for us to connect with because we're constantly scanning for threat. And threat doesn't always look like an actual tiger. It's the laundry, it's the shoes that your husband left on the floor, it's the cookie crumbles that your kid, ate not over the table and left a mess underneath, and you have to re-vacuum. These are all these little things that can sometimes trigger stuff within our system.
That is the reason that led me to start doing interviews with other people, because that way I'm not focusing on me. I will make a freaking video or whatever, and I'll just see where all the things about myself that I didn't like, or all the things about myself that I didn't like how it sounded, or me saying a lot of filler words, or this or that, all the bad things. It wasn't, hey, I got it done. It wasn't, hey, this is very useful. Hey, people saw this. No, it was all the things that were wrong with it. And sometimes that can happen in communication too. You hang on to the one thing, but you say this thing, and that's the thing you're going to hang on, even if it's sandwiched between a lot of good things. Can you speak a little bit of how stories match your state?
That's exactly what I was thinking too. This is such a great example of checking in with where you're at within your own nervous system because state will always write story. So when we are in a state of connection, being able to actually notice these things that we're connected to that bring this sense of joy. Wow. And I was on that interview, I really noticed the smile that she was giving me and just the presence of her body and the chair and how much I really loved that color. It's really allowing the eyes to connect with the things that feel good for my system. And that's telling me, showing me that I'm in a state of deeper connection versus if I was coming on this call and maybe I was feeling really activated, right? And I'm just like, I'm sitting here and I'm feeling a bit more tense and I'm a little bit more hyper vigilant, right? This is my heart's beating really, really fast. My breath is going really, really quickly. My eyes are darting all around. I even I'm feeling it in this moment, even as I kind of dip into this one. And so now I'm noticing, okay, well, she's not smiling right now. Maybe what I'm saying, did I say something wrong? I can't tell. I'm not connecting with the eyes as much. I almost feel like she's judging me. Is she judging me? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I don't actually know what I'm saying. Maybe I need to go get another certification in somatics because maybe I actually don't know what I'm even talking about. And look, she's grabbing her hand and I feel like she's closed off from me. Maybe I'm not being friendly. How am I talking? Am I talking too fast? Right. And even as I'm saying this, the tone in my voice is completely different from when I'm actually connected, right? I'm even leaning more forward. My eyes are a little bit bigger. These are signs that I'm in a higher state of activation. Activation isn't a bad thing. It's just sometimes when we're dipping into a higher state of activation and not allowing ourselves to then become a little bit settled when we're realizing there's no threat here. And now if my dorsal state, which is more my state of collapse, was writing this story, I might be leaning further back. I might really feel that disconnection of I don't even know why she invited me here. Maybe she just feels bad for me. Every time I show up on these calls, nobody even gets anything out of what I'm saying. Why do I even try? Maybe I shouldn't even do somatics anymore. Why am I even doing nervous system work? I don't know if this is ever even going to be able to, it doesn't feel like it's helping me. I'm dipping more into this state of disconnection where it feels really hopeless. It doesn't feel like things are going to really actually make a difference. I'm disconnected from why we're even here. I'm disconnected also from myself. You might even be asking me a question and I have a blank slate. And I'm like, wait, hold on. What did she say? Right, there's a lot of brain fog that can be here sometimes. I'm just gonna shake out because I can even again as I'm yeah, I'm as I'm even doing that, I feel that come through. And so it's constantly being able to check in with where we are at in terms of our nervous system. I always am saying there is no hierarchy. There's not a good or a bad state. All of them are important, but each one of them gives us information for how we can support ourselves. Because again, all of them are necessary. All of them make so much sense. We just don't want them to be our primary state. We want us to always be able to come back, right? It's normal for us to dip in and out of each of these states multiple times throughout an hour, throughout a day. But when we're creating flexibility within the nervous system, that resiliency, we're always coming back to our home state. We're dipping into certain things and then we can kind of come back, and then we might dip down and then we're coming back. So always being able to come back. For some of us, our state of connection, our social engagement system may have not been our primary state for some of our lives. And so it's a different home. And when we're entering a different home, it can feel unfamiliar. Even though it's a great state to be in, it can feel scary. It can almost sometimes even feel threatening because it's different from what we're used to. It's unfamiliar. And our nervous system hates unfamiliar. It's like, no, 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 no. This is a lot of the times why we see ourselves going back to particular situations, even though in the long run it might not be the greatest for us. Consciously, logically, we know this, right? We're like, I know this isn't good for me. Why do I keep doing this? But the body doesn't speak in logic, it doesn't know. It also can't tell time. So it is creating the repetition again and again and again, which is why finding these glimmers and constantly seeing if I can find places of connection with whoever I'm speaking with or wherever I'm at can be so impactful and create this compound effect. It's like flexing the muscle and going to the gym. If I enter the gym, but I don't pick up the weight, a muscle's not going to be built. And if I go once, it's still not going to be built. It's going back again and again and again and creating these sustainable changes and creating maintenance of it, which is, I think, sometimes the hardest thing for us to do, creating that sustainability and the maintenance.
I think that somatic communication is the most often missed piece in couples counseling. Like, I absolutely hate the general communication skills type thingy because they always talk about, oh, say this, not that. Like, okay, but what were you saying before you open your mouth? How was your monologue when you were thinking about it? What happened to your body when you came in? What were you guys doing? Were you actually facing each other? Were you doing each their own thing and having a fight while also cleaning, while also preparing something? You don't have to look at each other's eyes, but you're at least looking at the face and the body and tracking. If you're gonna talk about something uncomfortable, don't. I really need to talk about something. It's like, yeah, of course. As soon as I do that, even if it's like I would really like something that you will like too, you're already like, okay, let me put my gloves on. We're ready to fight. Like, you need to pay attention to
Yeah.
what's happening on the inside, but also how is your body communicating and the partner's body.
Yeah.
Don't just blah, 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 blah. And like, no idea how it's receiving. Pause. Check. I noticed you made a face. What did I say that caused that reaction?
Yeah, yeah. I think that is such a good point. It's something I played around in my relationship with because we are so used to just saying words and sometimes just having that verbal diarrhea and not being aware of how is my body communicating. I remember doing this exercise with him because he's not in the personal development world. He's not into, but he'll do it because he loves it. And I'm like, can I practice this thing with you? So excited. And the goal of the exercise was to just sit in front of one another and really connect with one another's eyes and really notice each other's bodies and not say a single thing and not even have any sort of intimate touch, but really just seeing what is it like to let the eyes lock with one another, to notice what the body is doing. And let me tell you what, it was one of the most profound and uncomfortable things that I had ever done because I realized I never actually take the time to connect in this way. It was such a beautiful thing to experience, especially as someone who's been studying this work and being like, man, it's a very different thing to hear people's stories and track their system. But what about when people are saying absolutely nothing? How then do you connect? How does your body respond? Because that's also something we have to be aware of as well. We're constantly tracking other people's bodies, even though we might not realize it or we're not trained in it. So we don't know that's what we're doing. And we're tracking these things based off of our own past experiences and biases that we've created in order to keep ourselves safe. but how is our body responding? Just like you said, what is my body communicating before I even open my mouth? Like, am I walking up to say something about the kids and my hands are already here and my shoulders are here? And meanwhile, we're on the same page about it, but my body's saying a totally different thing. It's so important. And again, foreign for many.
That is actually how it started when I do couples yoga, which I don't know if yoga is the right word, because honestly, it's a lot less yoga, a lot more like, can you just sit together and just chill?
Yeah.
I tell them to trace it. Like, I use a partner's body, so that's my way to have them just stay here. Because a lot of people come to couples, I know everything that's wrong with my partner. I know everything we need to fix, and just fix them. You know, you don't need to look in the eyes. I know that that is very uncomfortable for people, but can you trace them and just make sure that once you close your eyes, you can see them. Paint that picture and just have them sit there. It's strange, but then it shifts the energy for them when they start giggling, and you can see how their stage completely shift from whatever was happening outside to being able to
Yeah.
just be you.
I love that. Even when we were talking about that conversation of like, what do we do when we're going into a relationship? How do we create that nonverbal connection so then we can come into communication? Because if I'm approaching and I'm in this extremely activated state, again, message is going to be received very different versus when I can support my system and non-verbally even connect with my partner, the conversation is going to go so different. But when we're feeling really activated, we want to move that energy. And sometimes, again, it's not at the person we're even intending to a lot of the times. Well, I love that. I love that you do that exercise because it's super, super helpful.
If people were to
I love
take
that.
one thing from you today, what would you want it to be?
Ooh, I would love for them to begin getting curious, especially if they've never worked with understanding their nervous system or getting a little bit more connected with the body. Like, what is my body even saying in this moment? If it had words, if it had an awareness of what is it trying to even say? And really beginning to bring this conscious connection or somatic check-ins throughout their day-to-day experience and seeing if I could give myself one thing in this moment, what would that be? Making sure that you're bringing yourself into the picture of the life that you've created for so many around you and making sure you're a part of that.
Thank you, Tiffany, for being with me today, taking this time to
Thank
share
you.
your wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.